6:30, we'll begin our Finance Committee meeting. We'll begin the meeting by pledging to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. All right. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes, two sets of minutes from the month of September, a regular meeting on September 13th, and then the public hearing on September 27th. So we'll entertain two motions, one for each set of minutes.
I move the approval of the September 13th, 2022 minutes.
Second.
Right, moved and seconded by Jack. Any discussion? Any questions on the minutes? Hearing none. Take a vote. Mr. Courts?
Aye.
All right, take a
Aye.
vote.
Aye. I'll abstain.
Okay, and the chair will abstain as well.
I move the minutes of
There wasn't
September
there.
27th, 2022.
Second.
All right, second by Mr. Delay. Any questions on the minutes of September 27th? Hearing none. Mr. Courts?
Aye.
Aye.
Ward?
Aye.
Mr. Delay? Mr.
Abstain.
O'Keefe? The chair votes aye. So, year-to-date reports.
Nice cannabis revenue for June and August. $48,431 cannabis revenue, June, July, and August.
Yeah, I mean, it's 24,000, well, that's 3 months, so
Yeah.
16,000 a month. I think the opioid settlement is a statewide.
It
district.
was, and I believe that although they used a little bit of it, the rest went to partnership with Gardner to have some kind of a outreach program there.
One of the things on the town report that caught me by surprise is the transportation and the money that was encumbered at the end of the year. It's kind of unusual for them to have late payments like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm assuming it was, that at the end of the fiscal year, they had bills outstanding and encumbered the money. I don't know why it would have been delayed that long, because the money expended at this point in time at least on the town transportation, is the same amount of money that was encumbered. And on the school side, I remember back in end of June, July, when we were looking at the end of the year, there appeared to be a lot of money encumbered. And then at the beginning of this year, it seemed as though it wasn't encumbered, so I felt that it was probably something where they had paid them, but actually it was a lot of encumbrances to the tune of $760,000. So I am going to make an appointment to go see Mr. King and see if we get some explanation as to why was so much money encumbered. It's a lot of money to have encumbered at the end of the year. And I'm sure there's an explanation, but I'd like to know what it is.
Yep. Maybe ask them too if they have any leads on a new budget person.
Yeah, I mean, it's all in building maintenance, ground maintenance, supplies, technology. And I know last year there was a similar situation, and a lot of it had to do with the supply chain problems, but that's less of an issue this year for that kind of money, unless it's audited near the end of the year.
It could have been. But now Massachusetts, I don't know. I know New Hampshire, we had 60 days to get it in once the new year started. Do you have a limit? Like if I ordered stuff in May and it didn't come in, I had to get it by September 30th or I had to cancel it.
Yeah. I mean, I know, I can understand a little last minute shopping,
Yeah.
but I guess the other thing I wonder is how or why was that amount of money available for those items? What didn't get
Yeah.
spent?
Yeah.
Tom, my question on that would be, how does that impact net school spending? Because encumbered money is not spent money.
It's interesting because I don't think it does affect net school spending because it's encumbered money, so it's considered money that is FY '22 money, even though it's added into this budget. That was one of the things I learned, is that if at the end of the year you've encumbered a couple $100, that gets added to this year's budget.
Does the Board of Education, though, consider that for net school spending?
It was available to them, that they didn't use it. Doesn't
But we
mean-
got cited
Yeah.
many years ago about the school not spending, even though we funded in
Right.
excess of net school. If they didn't spend the money by June 30th,
That's
we
right.
were getting cited.
Right.
So since you plan on meeting with him,
I
I'd
can
like,
remember, we got cited for not meeting required minimum net school spending. And this was several years after the override was passed,
That's
Mhm.
right.
which put us above, gave us some cushion there
Right.
to stay above it. You know, and certainly $780,000, if that hadn't been spent, if it got turned back to the town, we would have never met net school spending. So the question really becomes, why is it there? I mean, what
Yeah.
was it that created such an opportunity?
that's why I wonder if encumbered monies count.
It's got to, because if it didn't count, then they wouldn't have met net school spending. Would have been shot by quite a bit of money. And some of it, I mean, as I said, the year before, there was quite a bit of encumbrances. You know, and they had ESSER money to purchase equipment that they hadn't purchased in a long time. So they really took advantage of it, as they should, to upgrade their equipment and grounds equipment, maintenance equipment, technology, certainly. So I can understand why that was encumbered and it added to the budget last year. Now what I'm thinking about, the question I've got now is, if you add $700,000 to your budget through encumbrances, which technically are previous year's expenditures, on paper, you've increased your budget from the budget that was approved, because all the encumbrances are there, so it's an additional $780,000 this year. does that new budget become your baseline for the next year?
I went and checked the school turn back at the end of the year, how much money they had left in their accounts from 2016 to 2020, 4 years, 5 years inclusive, and it was 1.4 million in 5 years that they did not use of their budget. Transportation budget was 606,000 that they didn't use for a total of $2.0 million.
Well, right, but the transportation, remember,
Yeah,
is
but it's just $1.4
municipal
million
budget.
in 5 years that,
Mhm.
like, there was just so much that they turned back.
Well, the transportation, I thought they were erring on the side of caution when they said they were going to need $1.1 million for special education. It
But
just,
that was only 600,000 for transportation. Their regular school budget was $1.4 million
they could,
over 5 years that they've turned back. I went back through the town meeting and I looked to see, and I calculated it from 2016 to 2022. In 2016 and 17, it was only like 66,000 and 50,000, but then going forward after that, 200, 300, it just went up.
see, I don't recall,
And of course, the year they didn't have school, that was huge.
the year that they didn't have the what?
For COVID, when the kids weren't in class.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that would explain why transportation was considerably low that
And
year.
supplies, because if your kids are at home, you're not, photocopying, you're not handing out things, so,
But on the school side, I mean, on the school, the town operating budget for the school,
mhm.
what I recall is, this year is about $44,000 they turned back.
Yeah, I
think
didn't
last
look at
year's
this year,
about
I did
50.
it's up to 2020.
I don't recall a lot of money being turned back. And again, anything over, $300-something thousand in a given year would have put them below
Yep.
net school spending. Now, anyway, it's
Something to talk about.
something I thought wasn't there, but it is there, and it begs some questions, just so we can understand it better. I'm not suggesting that they're not acting responsibly, but I'd like to know what the explanation is.
Yeah, there probably is a good explanation, just we'd like to know.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So there were two things that sort of caught my attention on the town side. One I think we've talked about a few times, was the fire department overtime,
Yeah.
which, with 1/4 of the fiscal year gone, we've used almost 50% of the budget for the year. And that's clearly going to be a problem somewhere towards the end of the year if it's not addressed. I don't know if there's a way to do that.
Apparently, the folks that are out, my understanding is are now back, so some of that overtime should be lightened. But we did meet with the fire chief on Tuesday, so I'll let Tom relay that.
No, I remember he explained it. I can't remember what it was. But yeah, we did meet with Chief Smith to talk over, a couple of these items, because we can see that trend coming again. And I still have my pet peeve about the overall schedule, given the number of men we have. But and it seems to me that there were several people who were out for a period of time that caused that, and those people coming back. The last couple of years, the fire department has had, a long-term injured firefighter or sick firefighter that ate into their overtime. This one, from what I understand, is not a long-term, but there was a series of short-term coverages. So he's aware of that, and just have to see how it goes. But it is, I mean, it's, at this point of the year, you'd expect would be, you know, we're 3 months into it, so it's about 25%, and to be at 50% is quite a bit. There was something on the police department too, that Joanne brought to our attention, on the reserves, that was over a little bit.
10,000.
Yeah, and he was gonna move 10,000 into that account.
Out of overtime to reserve line.
Is that where it was gonna come from,
Yeah.
overtime?
Come overtime.
Okay. So it could be where things are being charged, I'm not sure. I'm assuming the reserves are the part-time
Yeah.
officers that we're covering. In her note, she noted that he was gonna request a transfer and move that money from overtime, so he's covering that.
Part of the problem with the fire station is, according to Chief Smith, is that they have a real struggle getting part-time per diem, non-full-time firefighters to help out. Everybody is struggling, so they're going to the town closest to them or with the highest pay. So if you, right now, the way the schedule is set up, we have 72 hours of free time that has to be covered by someone. If you can't get per diems to come in and do it, then it's our full-time firefighters, and then, of course, it's overtime, big time. But if you can't get the per diem, you have to have somebody on.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of contractual language that
yeah,
dictates how overtime is managed. And that there are certain, like if you're covering somebody who's out on vacation or out sick, the full-time firefighters have to have first dibs. So you can't hire per diem firefighter
and that's
for a
automatic
lot less
overtime.
money. You have to you have to hire somebody who's a full-time firefighter. Whereas the schedule, which is always annoyed me in that we have a weekly schedule. We have a fire department with 11 full-time firefighters, so we have a weekly schedule that calls for 12 and a half full-time firefighters. So every week, you've got 72 hours of overtime that has to be covered. And you can use the per diem firefighters for that, but he says it's difficult to bring them in with the current rate. I'm not sure what the rate is, but it's a challenge. So it ends up going out to, again, the full-time firefighters.
And whatever the reason, it's gonna be a six-figure overage at the end of the year if it keeps up at this rate, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
My other, I don't know if it's a question or just an observation, but on, in the town side, on page 31, the school choice and charter school tuition, I guess maybe I didn't realize that was coming out of that's over $1 million.
Yeah,
That's coming out of the town side of the budget and not the school side of the budget.
yeah. It's because it goes through the state. And so the town pays, it's always been it's on the town side because it's part of the cherry sheet. If you look at the cherry sheet, we get reimbursed for a certain percentage of charter school tuitions. And for school choice children who come into Winchendon, that money doesn't go to the school department, it goes to the town general revenues. So what you'll see is a bill here, and when you look at the revenues, you'll see payments for charter school, payments for the school choice. Now, that said, the amount of money coming in is considerably less than the amount of money going out. But it doesn't get, it's the town's responsibility to educate the children, so if the children don't go to school in town but go to school out of town, then that money is budgeted in the town budget.
Yeah, okay.
Well, Tom, the school choice money does pass back and forth through the indirects.
Was that?
It does pass back and forth through the indirects between the town and the school.
Yeah,
So while you're seeing it on the town budget, the school still gets the burden.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly the money coming in does. And if you're looking at the indirect costs, the cost for the money going out is considered part of net school spending.
Mhm.
So there are a number of things that are indirect costs that are charged to the town, but are school costs that are included when budgets are tallied to make sure that you're meeting net school spending. Anything else on the year-to-date reports? All right. We've had for a couple of meetings,
Thank you.
I think in August, we talked about
Thank you.
developing some goals for the Finance Committee over the course of FY '23. And we kicked around some different ideas. I took a opportunity to write out what the goal would be and sort of a rationale behind them. When we just walked through the three goals, and this is a draft, so we can make changes if you feel we need to be making some changes, or if there's something that's happened between now and last August, maybe there's something that's more pressing. First one was to increase our monitoring of the town fiscal issues and actions, add a standing agenda item for updates on fiscal initiatives. And the rationale was that too often initiatives that are generated by votes at town meeting, such as capital projects, bylaw changes, et cetera, are not revisited periodically and sometimes fall off the radar. The failure to schedule a town vote on changes to the charter that were voted on at the 2021 town meeting is an example of this type of oversight. So the Finance Committee would add a standing agenda item that would review the progress of audit recommendations and fiscally related town meeting actions.
Yeah, I would like to see on our agenda added
Yeah,
so that we remember, because I know after the audit report, for a while, I was writing them all down, but if we could just put those highlights in and have an update, the town manager doesn't have to come, he can give you the update, just where are we at? Some of the easy stuff like the filing system, and did we get those personnel files up to date? Pick off the low-hanging fruit first.
Anybody else? The second one was to develop a 5-year projection of increased fixed budget costs to better understand their impact on the overall budget. The fixed costs that we have as a town, and we budget each year, that are increasing at rates higher than the town's typical revenue growth. Mr. Roselli, the town's auditor, highlighted the increases in the Worcester County retirement that'll average 5% a year for the next 15 years or so. Health insurance costs have increased at an average of nearly 10% over the last 2 years. In addition, the town needs to budget for annual contributions to the OPEB fund. Snow and ice costs increased 55% in FY '23 over FY '21, and was $350,000 over the amount included in the budget. Understanding the impact of these increases on the budget allow us to be proactive in budget development sessions.
Why can't they be in the budget? Why can't they just be in the budget?
Just be in the budget?
Yeah. Why do we vote on them every year? Why can't it just be part of our budget?
No, I'm not suggesting that we vote on them every year.
Well, they go to town meeting for free cash to say,
You know, so if we, I think the intent here is to identify those expenses that are growing at a pretty dramatic rate, and understand the impact of that overall on the budget. What, in other words, if you've got a section of your budget, let's say you get 25% of the budget that are bills that have to be paid, retirement, insurance, things that you have to pay. There's no wiggle room. You can't say, well, we'll cut back on health insurance this year because we need, another fire truck or something like that.
but that's what I'm asking is why can't the county retirement 5% be put in the budget? Why can't the OPEB be put in the budget rather than free cash?
Oh, OPEB.
Yeah,
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, that's how the
Yeah.
policy's written.
yeah.
And I'd be interested when we get into the budget, because that was pretty clear in the policy that OPEB was supposed to be in the budget.
Right.
It's an expense the town has. It's not an expense that you can say, well, we'll pay it one year, we won't pay it the next year, any more than you can pay retirement one year, not the next year, or health insurance.
And that could happen
And that
at
was,
town
it
meeting.
was clear, and at this FY '23 budget, when I viewed it and met with the town manager and pointed that out, he was, taken aback a little bit, but just said he missed it. He just didn't include the 5% that he should have included. And that this would be a one-time only use by using free cash to do it. That the next year, it would be in the budget. Now, I know he made a comment when we met the town for the public hearing about, well, we'll have to have some discussion around that. So that's something I think we want to get some discussion of soon. And I understand there's a lot of pressure on him to do the things he needs to do as a town manager and develop a budget that supports his goals. But I think it was pretty clear in terms of the explanation that went along with the policy that OPEB is different than stabilization fund.
Yeah.
OPEB is different from the separation fund. OPEB is a bill, and a bill shouldn't be out there needing to be paid for by free cash. So I think what we'll try to do is certainly get some sense of what the trends have been in some of these areas, identify the line items that are bills, if you will. To your point, school choice and charter schools is one of them that have to be paid. And if we get some trends, we do some projections and begin to develop an understanding of what's the impact going to be on the budget 5 years from now for those items that are increasing at a much higher rate than our revenues.
Mhm.
All right. And then the third one is advocate for tri-board discussions to explore strategies, including regionalization, to address the challenges of the scarcity of qualified candidates for key town government positions. In fact, since we discussed that, we've learned that the school department has lost their business manager. So we're back to square one when it comes to business manager. We haven't been able to replace the treasurer.
And we're gonna lose, our treasurer, our assistant treasurer has been moved to treasurer.
Oh,
Not qualified yet, but is working on getting qualified.
that's good.
Our town accountant is gone at the end of October, I believe. She put her notice in 18 months ago. And it was just advertised last month. And I know 2 weeks ago, we didn't have any candidates. I don't know if we do yet. And I like the idea of this one, but with a caveat. For discussion at tri-board meetings, it's listening to the selectmen discuss just what should happen with the road up here. It was a total boondoggle, because nobody understands engineering, state law. Big rigs coming up a hill can't stop at the top and be able to get going again. So unless you come with some ideas to discuss, I think it would just be a free-for-all and you wouldn't get much out of it.
I mean, I don't think it's any secret to anyone that there's a shortage of qualified labor in virtually any industry today.
Yeah.
It's not only town management, it's, financial, it's industrial, it's everywhere. And, I mean, regionalization, to me, seems like one of the more logical ways to fix that problem, or at least start to address it. Just, in some cases, you're just not gonna get people to do it.
Or companies. And I know when you say, well, have a company do it, well, they're not part of the town. They don't come into the office. They're removed. It's figures, it's black and white. I just want to make sure my budget's correct. And I don't think you need to be in here slapping people on the back to get the budget figures in. Better to have somebody than to have nobody.
Well, I certainly would like to, some research and find out, look at other models
Yeah.
than the one we have.
Yeah, I think if you
The idea of a
brought that.
finance director for the town.
Yeah,
You need a lot of buy-in from the schools, obviously, to do that. But there are other models that are being used in other places. We're looking Western Mass, I'm sure we'll find a lot of examples of collaborative efforts, multiple towns using, professional people on a part-time basis, and cobbling together full-time jobs. So it's something that, and I agree with you, you can't come in and just sit down and invite the Board of Selectmen and the school department with a blank slate.
Yep, I think the best example of that is the Cape Cod Commission.
Yeah.
All the communities of Cape Cod joined together to create a planning department for Cape Cod.
Yeah.
Not one per town, but one that is all. And unlike outside firms, the Cape Cod Commission is made up of employees of all those towns. All the towns are still represented. You don't have to worry about, it's somebody from New York.
yeah.
But yeah, there are examples, and Western Mass probably has them as well, because they have many small towns.
That's right, that's right.
Yeah.
So, you know, what I'd see our task is to see if we can research and find out a little bit about how other organizational patterns
Yeah.
work. Not, and then get to a point where we might have some options to be able to ask for a broader,
In some ways,
multiple committee.
I think we need to do the legwork. I don't agree with spending money to find out what I can find out through a right-to-know request. That really bothers me that we would spend $10,000 to find out what other towns are paying their town manager or their accountant or their treasurer.
Right.
Just ask them.
Right. Yeah, I think MMA could be a valuable
Yeah,
resource.
MMA probably already has that info.
I probably
Yeah.
have that information. You know, the DC must have information on,
Yeah.
you know, particularly smaller school districts.
Exactly.
And how they collaborate.
Yeah.
Fortunate because of the times, as you mentioned right here in number 3, it's the scarcity of labor, qualified labor.
Yeah.
Typically, regionalization, the people think the goal is reducing cost. Regionalization increases costs, but it improves productivity, efficiency, so you're getting a value,
Right.
but it isn't decreasing costs.
Yeah,
You're
I
going to
don't-
get what you're paying for
Right.
then.
I don't see it as a cost-saving measure. If anything, if you, you know, it's a marketplace, so if you've got few people with the kinds of experiences and credentials that you're looking for, then competition's greater, and it's like buying a house or selling a house these days, you know.
It's one reason
We
I
don't know
actually
that.
like using the Cape Cod Commission as an example. Think of all the little towns on the Cape. What would happen when a major developer comes to the town and they bring their lawyers in, all their studies? How does the town negotiate with them? It's impossible.
Yeah.
But by building the Cape Cod Commission, now they're staffed with the professionals, and you don't have the businesses saying, well, if you don't do it, I'll just go 3 miles over the border to the other town. Well, the Cape Cod Commission says, that's fine, you'll still deal with us. You know, and it isn't pitting you against your
Yeah.
neighbors at that point.
So there are, you know, there are options out there, other different models to look at. You know, unfortunately, you know, we started talking about this when we got a problem. You know,
Yeah.
We got an accountant that's leaving in 2 weeks. We've got an inexperienced treasurer.
Yeah.
We've got no business manager at the school. So we need solutions right now. And I'm not suggesting that this goal would address any of the problems that we have right now.
We don't have a director of planning and development yet, because Tracy Murphy hasn't been
Right.
filled. We don't have a manager secretary yet. So we have a lot of key positions.
Now, we do have the secretary, town manager secretary.
No, we don't. We have the executive assistant, but we don't have the secretary.
I thought Mary's
She's taking
over.
Linda's job. That's
Yeah.
the executive assistant.
Oh, right, okay,
But
okay,
I'm
that's,
talking
yes,
Tamara's
yes,
job.
yes, yeah. So is there anything else that we should be adding to this list? I mean, there'll always be things that come up that we have to deal with, and,
One of the things, and I don't know if it should be on for our goals, but I would like us to have a little clearer understanding of solar revenues, because the Article 16, May 2015, there should have been, Bobby's nodding over there, there should have been an account set up so that some of our capital projects would be used from solar revenue. And, now, that's 7 years now, it hasn't been done.
And what's interesting, in those 7 years, it's almost like the game Operator. You know, you tell somebody a story and then they tell the next person.
Yep,
How much it changed, because town meeting voted, so it's very clear, it's black and white what town meeting voted for. That money was to go to capital. But since then, I have heard, half that money's supposed to go to this department over here or that. It's like, where did all these ideas pop up? I mean, you end up getting, and in time, we've had, how many town managers since 2015? Including acting town managers? Only 2?
No, I'm including Acton.
No, because when it passed, Kreidler was here.
Yeah, but he was gone 2015, right?
But when the article passed, Kreidler was the town manager.
And then we had Keith Hickey. And then we had Justin, other than our interims.
We had
Well, that's what I'm saying, with including interim, I mean, we had,
Stephen Delaney?
Steve Delaney was the last interim, and before that was, what's
Yeah.
the guy that,
so it's 5 different town managers, which is why when I've spoken to town managers, some of them actually thought that pilot money was to go to a certain department in town.
Well, I know
Instead of
Mr.
capital.
Hickey thought it was 50-50 school and town. But
suggested he
that's-
split it 50/50.
That's not
Yeah.
what, the article in 2015 was approved, and it's like, well, I don't agree with it, so I'm gonna blow it off. I think
Yeah.
we need to have hold some feet to the fire on that,
But that's why I like goal number 1.
yeah. So, but I think more than just talking about it once a year, we have to push.
All right, so let's add that to, as number 4.
I would like to,
Develop
because
a-
I think we need to develop that account, and then we need to look at what's going into it and how it's being used.
Right, and with the solar, what about the cannabis?
Well, the cannabis too, was there?
Is that-
Can you remember any
The-
article on how that was supposed to be used? That was just town revenue.
Yeah,
General.
It's just revenue.
Okay,
Okay.
It's calculated in, certainly when the budget's put together.
and should we as a finance committee be saying, look, that's gravy? Should we be asking for a specific account for that, like with the solars, and designate it to something?
See,
We'd have to see if the state cannabis laws allow us to do
Yeah.
that, but it's worthwhile doing so.
I'm not so sure it's a wise thing to take a new revenue and dedicate it to a particular purpose. And when you think about where our revenue comes from, the largest source of revenue is the state, actually.
Right,
So we have limited control over that. The next largest is the property tax, and that's very much regulated. 2.5, can increase by 2.5% a year.
right.
So it's incumbent on the town to grow the other revenues, other local revenues, just to maintain the ability to continue the services we have, because the cost of those services are going up. So if every new revenue comes down, where you say, well, that's gonna go here, and that's gonna go here, and that's gonna go here, then we're hamstringing ourselves to have the flexibility to put that money where it's needed in any given year.
So when I looked on the revenue sheets, I couldn't find it. Maybe I just missed it. I would like to see it on the revenue sheets, the cannabis, so I know we're getting extra.
Yeah, well, it seems to me that in this year's budget, it was budgeted 0,
It
Yeah.
had, yeah.
because we didn't have enough of a track record. So
Because-
everything that comes in the cannabis right now,
Yeah, because like Joanne said, there was $48,000 that came in, and the Mayberry landfill closure, $122,000, like, where is it?
It's gonna end up hitting free cash
Free
at the end
cash.
of the year.
Okay,
It's not a bad thing.
so we don't know unless she tells us each month.
well, it would be in the, we could certainly ask for the final local revenue accounts.
That would be good, just
FY '22, just to see where it
see where
ended
it
up.
is, yeah.
We
Yeah.
wondered, well, one of the things we'll talk about in a minute, that I need to understand a little bit better is that I know that there's around, I don't know, it was $400,000 in revenues above what we budgeted. So it'd be good to know what contributed to
Yeah.
that $400,000.
How was it generated?
I know part of it was certainly the cannabis.
Yeah,
Um,
but only 48,000. I mean, and didn't they change the law on cannabis now that they aren't required to give us a percentage or something?
Well, we'll still collect the taxes, the local tax on
Yeah.
it. It's the surcharge for cost to the community that's gonna go away.
Host agreement, I think it's
Yeah.
called.
Yeah, it was community impact
Yeah.
money.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that one's been, I don't know if the legislature's acted on that, but there's
I sort of heard stuff
pretty
and then it
legitimate
died.
argument to say,
Yeah, it sounded like it's going to be wiped out because it
Yeah.
was forced extortion.
and,
You know, my concern about the cannabis funds, let's just say we had 48,000 in the last quarter or that 3-month period, so that projects to, just say, $200,000 a year. There's a tremendous amount of additional competition that's gonna be coming from that, from other communities. I don't think that we can necessarily count on that revenue year in and year out, because
I actually see it growing
Yeah, I do too.
because we have our one shop located during those months. Then we have a second shop about to go online. Has it opened yet?
I don't think it's opened yet.
All right, just about to open.
Yeah,
And we are allowed 3,
yeah,
but you're absolutely right. I mean, when all of a sudden the surrounding communities have more, if a resident lives closer to them, they may choose to go there.
And New
But
Hampshire.
likewise, we may have residents coming from other communities here.
and New Hampshire, where the beeline from New Hampshire, we're the first one they're gonna hit.
That's right.
it's probably
Hampshire
only a matter of
legalizes.
time before it gets legalized there as well.
Yeah,
yeah.
could be
I
time,
mean, it
though.
is definitely a point where the industry can become saturated.
Yep.
And,
I don't think
and
we're
it's
not there
just,
yet.
there's X amount of money that's gonna be spent on it.
But that goes directly to what you were saying, Tom. If this money was allocated, it is going to be so variable that no one can depend on what's going to be there. So it really needs to go to the general fund
That's
right
right.
now.
That's right.
We're
No, and
probably
it-
more stable with the grow facilities than the retail outlets.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right.
Although personally, if you want to target money, I say you target towards the funds that are unfunded, whether it's, retirement, OPEB, all those things that we're trying to catch up on, target for that until we get to the goals.
Yeah.
I mean, I think as we, what I'm hoping we have at the end of, after spending some time looking at projections, is a sense of how much is it gonna cost the town 5 years down the road, and where is that money gonna come from? That's sort of the goal.
Yeah,
And it might spur efforts like regionalization. Although I agree, I don't see the purpose of regionalization is saving money. So, but I think we're on the same page in terms of saying,
like to be more proactive than reactive.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Special town meeting report. When I went away the last couple, 5 days or so, and the scenario changed, the playing field changed while I was gone. I'm glad I hadn't put a lot of effort into town meeting report, but the understanding 2 weeks ago was that the free cash either wasn't going to be certified in time for town meeting, or only part of it would be certified because there was a lot of grant money that needed to be drawn down. So either that scenario has changed, or some of the suppositions for that scenario turned out not to be true. But this is from Deb Wagner, DOR, so it looks as though the general fund right now would be $1.9 million. I think we had calculated somewhere around $550,000 in the warrant. I don't have the figure with me right now. And the beginning point of that money was the 700 something thousand dollars that we have in free cash right now. I think we have $758,000 in free cash that we've carried all year long. So if my estimates are right, my memory is right, I should say, and we're looking at about $550,000 in the warrant that was coming out of free cash. If they all passed, then we'd be looking at about a $1.35, $1.4 million free cash account moving forward. So that changes the playing field a little bit. It's not that it's more money than we're expecting. Might be a little bit, the numbers are a little bit different than the ones that Joanne had showed me a few weeks ago. But instead of having $700,000 available at town meeting, and another $1 million that was gonna come our way once all the grant requests were drawn down, it looks as though all that money is up front right now. So it is available, the differences is it's available for FY '23, instead of having to wait until next year's free cash being certified and showing up there. And again, free cash can only be appropriated by the town, so it's not as though it's available without a town meeting. So I need to get, I just got this from Linda today, and I need to understand the pluses and minuses if they get down to the $1.9 million free cash calculation. And there is some free cash, as you can see, in the sewer account, some in the water account. And right now, the retained earnings for transfer station is the healthiest one of the group, which is not a surprise. We've talked about retained earnings and the lack of retained earnings for the fire, the water and the sewer departments for quite a while. So what I thought I would focus the report on is where's this money come from? You know, I mean, we carried over $750,000. Joanne had expenses at about $620,000 that didn't get spent. Revenue surplus of about $465,000. So I know it's in that ballpark. But I'd like to identify some of the key things that were savings, if you will, on the expense side. We know that a big piece of it was the sped transportation, which, but there were several items in there that contributed to it. And then take a look at the revenue surplus. It's sort of what we were talking about with our discussion around the cannabis revenues. If we had $465,000 revenue increase than projected, what accounted for that? And then I'll give an update on the stabilization fund and the funds that are on the warrant article, the stabilization, OPEB, and the retirement fund.
Well, on that, Article 7 and 8, the OPEB and the stabilization stayed the same, but we cut the or stabilization, we cut from 160,000 to 80,000. So if it's 1.9 million that's been certified, can it not go back up to 180?
I asked that
Or
question
160?
after we had
Yeah.
our chance discussions. And what Linda told me, I think she's right too, is you can make an amendment on the floor to reduce an amount of money,
But not increase it?
but not increase it.
Okay. Rats.
So thoughts, I mean, does it make sense to focus the report on free cash? And, I mean, it's certainly a positive report. We'll be sitting on more free cash this year than we did last year. We're adding money to the stabilization, we're adding money to OPEB, and we're adding some money to the separation.
And I think a repeat, you did
Diamond.
it once before, you had 3 slides on what OPEB is, what stabilization
Yeah.
is, in terms they understand, because I think a lot of times we throw those acronyms out and people just go, yeah, right, whatever.
Right. No, need to explain it every time we present it.
Yeah,
And particularly point out the fact that OPEB should have been in the budget.
yeah.
It shouldn't be coming out of free cash. It's an expense to the town.
It's a bit of a surprise that there's free cash in water and sewer.
Well, we're
Pleasant
pumping a
one,
lot of money into
Well,
OPEB money and, not OPEB, but, we put in free cash, quite a bit of free cash money, and, what's the,
The ARPA funds.
ARPA, thank you, over the last couple of years. So if you took a look at what we've put in from free cash and ARPA,
Yeah, we're still in
it'd
the
be a
hole,
negative number.
big time.
All right,
At town meeting, because we're still on that report, so the warrant articles, the town moderator usually says, you know, who makes this motion. So for our 3 finance articles,
Yep.
do you want me to just do like we normally do? The finance committee recommends this articles 5-0, whatever we did?
Yeah.
Okay.
And as I said, in the report, I'll highlight
Okay,
the 3 of them.
yeah.
That worked well last year. All right, the Association of Town Finance Committee Conference, which is the 5th of November, a Saturday. Have any of you gotten anything from, no? All right, then I will forward to you the links, I guess, 'cause I've been getting them weekly, if not twice a week. I find the conference to be interesting, useful. Doug, you went to the one we went to last spring,
I mean, I thought the last one was extremely helpful.
yeah.
It helped in 2 areas. It helped capital planning, and it also helped town finance. And I am getting weekly reminders and
Okay,
requests because I'm on the list now.
Right, Adrian's probably getting them too.
You're on the list.
I'm gonna be out of town that week, so I won't be able to go.
Yeah, I'll probably go.
When is it?
It's a 9 to 3 on Saturday, November 5th.
Oh,
I'll send you something too.
early voting.
Early voting.
Yeah.
Okay, your excuse.
We're doing ballots today already.
I think one of the talks is going to be on the impact of early retirements, municipal early retirements on OPEB.
That's probably a good thing to know,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then there's always the, Town Finance 101 workshop that they that they do. But each of the workshop sessions has a couple of choices, so you don't have to, attend the 101 conference, workshop. All right, I'll see if I can download and forward you
Okay.
the information.
A weekend
and then-
away.
Do you plan on attending, Tom? Do you plan on attending?
Yeah, yeah,
May I join you?
sure, absolutely, Bob. All right.
Bobby will do anything to get out of eating at home.
No, I'd prefer to be eating the coq au vin I made right now. I love eating at home. Although, where's the meeting?
Yeah,
The town?
It's
All
in
right.
Sharon.
Hmm?
It's in Sharon, Mass.
Sharon? Okay.
yeah, I think it's, yeah. They move it around. All right, that brings us up to member comments. Hearing none, that brings us up to public input.
Member
Hello,
comments,
Mr. Ward.
member comments first. Member comments.
Oh, I asked.
Oh, yeah, no, I have one, because our next date, FinCom date is November the 8th. That's Election Day. So I won't be here.
Right. Good point. We should probably change the date. What about, I have
First?
to check with Linda, but would the following Tuesday work, the 15th?
You know, only if you want to come to British Columbia and do it with me.
Ah,
Well, the following Tuesday works for me at least.
All right, let me do this. Let me check with Linda and find out where there's a couple of spots and then send something out to everybody. We'll take the best day. But we'll try to do it within that, ideally in that first week. When are you going?
I'm leaving on the 10th. I could do it the first Tuesday, November 1st. And then I won't be back till after Thanksgiving.
What about
Alright,
the day
so-
after? Wednesday, the 9th?
Hmm.
Don't like Wednesdays?
We don't do Wednesdays, we do Tuesdays.
I have to find out who
Oh,
else is,
okay.
Yeah, just
what other committee is working
because
on
of
this.
who's been booked, like they book certain people on certain days. You
Yeah,
can
so let me check with Linda.
Yeah,
Let me
yeah,
check with Linda.
if it's
and-
free, but I usually think there's somebody on the Wednesday after us.
All right.
Our member of the public could check the calendar right now and tell us, but he's sleeping down there.
Is it going to be accurate?
Have you got a? November 9th. Ooh, ooh,
The question is it accurate?
yeah,
Find out.
yeah.
All right, I'll see her tomorrow and get out, try to get back to you quickly so we can pick a date soon.
November 1st, free? Oh, rats. Because usually we're like midnight on election day, and the next day I'm zapped. And then
Yeah.
we're leaving at 5 o'clock in the morning on Thursday.
Yeah.
I don't know why I did that.
You're going to British Columbia in November?
Yeah, my mom's in the hospital.
Okay.
Sorry to hear it.
Hmm?
Sorry to hear.
Oh, it's been in for over 2 months now.
Mhm.
Not good. Okay, the public made their comments.
Well, one quick question, sorry. For the special town meeting, are we meeting ahead of time, or are we just meeting at 7?
You know, I think it would be good to meet at 6:30,
Yeah, just in case.
especially with the
Yeah.
balls seem to be up in the air
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
time for this one.
So let's go 6:30 on the,
So
24th?
6:30, yeah. That's the 24th.
right.
Great. Anything else?
Move to adjourn at 7:35.
7:35. Motion to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.